Okay, so I did a thing. I don't know, you probably saw a video of my car getting impounded. Well, that was a car that I had just purchased. I was probably 10 minutes from where I bought it from, and I got pulled over by Virginia State Police. It's pretty funny. Got my car out of impound the next day, drove it 300 miles back to North Carolina, and I want to show you what I drove back. I bought a Mark 8 Lincoln. There she is. That's it. This car is a very controversial car. There's always opinions on it. And from what I'm noticing, there's either really good opinions on it, or people either love it or they hate them. Personally, I've always liked this car. Oh, look at the two rabbits go. Sorry, buddies. Sorry, little guys. I mean, scare you. I try not to scare them too much. I like them out here. It's pretty cool. So far, this has been a big ordeal. Driving it back, there's a lot of things that were wrong with it. I know the guy told me that, it runs and drives. But if I would have known what I knew, I would have still bought it, but I would have trailered it home. So the first thing is this wheel. Yeah, that's not a bullet wheel. That is a wheel off of a Ford Escape. The lug pattern is 5x108 on this car, but the offset is different than most other 5x108s. Okay, so that the pattern and offset is pretty unique to this car, to the Mark 8s, and to the Thunderbirds. So finding a wheel for it is pretty difficult, and I'm trying to find a bullet wheel that matches, because the other one that I still have here that I kept from the guy has a huge crack in it going up the lip. That's what the wheel looks like, guys. I don't even know if this is repairable at this point, but we'll see. And I've called one place that welds them back together, and they said it was unrepairable. And I got 2 other places to call that do reconstructive work on wheels, and I'm gonna see if somebody can get it, because as of now I cannot find a wheel for it. So I got a Ford Escape wheel thinking it's a 5x108. This will work. At least a full-size wheel will get me home, because it was just sitting on a donut. And I'm driving close to 300 miles through the mountains, so that's not what I wanted to do, was to go through the mountains with a donut, okay? And a lot of other shady problems that I wasn't aware of to begin with. And I'll go over those. So I had this put on at a shop, and I bought this wheel from a scrapyard, and then I had a used tire put on it, just to give it by. But it wouldn't fit on completely because the offset was different. So what I ended up doing, and I know this is sketchy, but we ended up putting 2 washers in between each lug nut, so it had some sort of metal on metal contact. And this is probably the sketchiest thing that I've done, honestly. And I drove it like that for 300 miles, and I was cool, luckily. And that's the beginning of the problems. The second thing was the headlights don't work. There was one headlight, one high beam that worked, the other high beam doesn't work, and the other regular headlights don't work. And I didn't know that until it got dark out. And the high beam isn't really a high beam. It was like holding a candle in front of the car. So that's sketchy too. The other most sketchy thing outside of the front wheel is the rear end of the car. I figured out what it was, but if you push the car will actually go right to left. It goes like this in the rear. And I figured out what it was. I thought it might have been a Panhard bar or something, like the sway bar or whatever. It might not even have been on it, because I mean, this thing literally felt like it was fishtailing every time you went over a bump. Well, it turns out for the control arm, the bushings are completely shot. The only thing keeping it from coming off was just the bolt. So the bolts are just rattling around in there. And I drove it like that. I'm gonna clip in a video to show you how fucked up this actually is. Look at that. That's fucking cool. So yeah, you saw that. That's crazy. I drove it like that for 300 miles through the mountains. And literally the first 20 miles after I bought it and left, and I'm like, well, this is a bad idea, but I'm gonna get it anyway. Like, I drive by Virginia State Police, they had somebody else pulled over, and the guy looked at me, and I swear to God, all he saw was a black Mark 8 going by with like super dark tint, blacked out on a donut with no license plate on it. And I swear to God, his mouth, he just went, motherfucker. And they both jumped in their squad car, and they must have went zipping up the road like 100 and something to catch up with me, right? Even though I was doing like 40, so I was being safe. But anyway, and then they pulled me over and they're like, hey man, we're gonna impound your vehicle. And I was just like, okay, cool, great, and they're just doing their job, It's weird because most of the time proof of sale, is, most cops will let you buy or whatever. But they're playing it by the book, and I'm cool with that, man. Like, I ain't no hater, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna give cops a hard time, man. They're cool, they're doing their job. And I had it towed. And then we just went back, the next day, and I got it out of impound. And then it was kind of good that it happened because it was dark and we still had over a 4-hour drive with that headlight like that and everything else. That was just really sketchy. So we went during the daytime and, the next day, and I got it here. And now, yeah, that's pretty much it. Now I'm addressing all the problems. Oh yeah, the other problem was it had a misfire too while I was driving it. So it kind of, and the more I drove it, the worse it got. And that was freaking me out, between the rear end going side to side, having this whacked out tire and wheel on the front, the motor kicking and sputtering at idle. It was just, I've never had so much anxiety driving a vehicle in my life. When I got it home, the first thing I addressed was the motor. Hooked my OBD2 reader up to it, and it read, the check engine light was on, and it said there was a cylinder 3 misfire. So I looked up the firing order, found cylinder 3, and immediately the plugs are new, everything else was new, and all the coils, because it's coil on plug, so all the coils were matching from the same set. So I figured, you know what, one of them, it's probably bad. That's just my assumption. So I took the coil out, went to Advance, got a new coil, put the coil in, and it solved it. It runs so smooth now. Check engine lights off, motor's good. So the next thing that I'm going to do now is I'm going to address the rear end of that car while I'm looking for somebody that can repair the wheel. So I have to get 4 new bushings to put: the upper bushings for the control arm to frame, and then the lower bushings for control arm to knuckle. I have to do the knuckle and the frame bushings on both sides. They're both shot. And once I get those in, the only other thing I'll have to do is just fix the headlights and redo the wiring on them and get them all working. And outside of that, then I can actually start driving it. There's a lot of other stuff that's broken on it. There's a lot of other things that I have to do. There's a lot of other stuff that's just jacked, like with the interior parts and, broken plastic pieces, and like the switches. Some of the seat switches are missing. One you got to swap back and forth. The door sensor wigs out all the time. This door latch, I got to figure something out with the alignment on this door because it doesn't seem to seal at the top all the way. There's just a lot of little stuff that's annoying. Like even the hood, like the hood spacing needs to be addressed. You see the spacing over here, it's real tight, and then as you get over here, it gets wide open. So that needs to be addressed too. But so there's a lot of stuff. It's going to be a working project, and I'm going to make a lot of videos on it too. I've always liked the LSC cars, because it's basically a cheap Cobra. I mean, it's an SVT motor that's in there. It's the 4.6 dual overhead cam. The only difference in this motor between this one and the one that's in the Cobra is the Cobra has a Cobra intake manifold, and then the intake cam is different. I think the lift's the same, but I believe the duration is a little different. Obviously the transmission is probably a little different too. The way it's geared is different, but it's basically it's a Cobra motor. I mean, it's all interchangeable, so that's pretty cool. It sounds great, but it's super comfortable too, even on the drive home. Outside of shitting myself and being scared out of my mind, the one thing that I can say is it outside of all that, it was a very, very comfortable ride considering all the problems. So I mean, I really like it because it's a cross between, kind of a Cobra-ish type feel, two-door, like, you know, like a big body coupe, you know, and you know, a luxury car, which is really cool. So I'm super excited to get this thing worked on and, you know, kind of bring it back to its prestige, you know, get it back nice. So yeah, thank you for keeping up with my bullshit. Oh yeah, the Cafe Racer, the XS400, I sold it, so it's gone. Everything was done, everything was right. I had a guy come out and look at it, and then he came out. I forgot the title, and he came out then, you know, a day or so later, and yeah, he bought the XS400, so it's gone now. My bike lift is empty. I have like a Honda generator or something on there I'm working on, but the bike's gone, man. Glad it went to somebody, you know, who liked it, and I was going to take care of it. And the new project is the LSC, and we're gonna get that. We're gonna get that going. I should say the Mark 8, because I don't even know if I can call it an LSC at this point, because it looks like, I don't know if that's the bumper's original or not, but the one thing that made me is this. This was painted to match, or it looked like it was, but it looks like that's chrome. So if that's the original door, then that means that this isn't on a true LSC, I don't believe. And then I think the interior, I don't know if they made the black LSCs with the gray interior. I think they had the all black interior. So I'm not too bummed out on it. I think the only difference was it was a true dual exhaust on the LSC, and the trim was paint matched and had LSC on the back, which that one does. That's an actual neon from an LSC. But the motor's the same. The gearing, I think the gearing was a little different too, but nothing crazy. So I'm gonna probably shoot paint on this again when the body work's done, because it needs a little body work, and I'll probably actually paint match the trim like better than what it is now. So it'll kind of be an LSC look-alike, I guess. Basically it'll be an LSC minus the gearing, which I could do the gearing if I really want to, but honestly the gearing on this car is beautiful for just cruising around. The highway, great gas mileage. Surprisingly, I had an Aviator, like an 06 Aviator, had an LSC in it, and it was all-wheel drive, and I swear to God, I think got like 6 miles to the gallon. But this thing did better than, you know, than like a little Honda or something. I mean, I filled it up once and drove that far, and I still had gas. So I mean, yeah, you know, it's great. It did great on gas. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my shitty channel, and tell other people about my shitty channel, and have them like subscribe to it and stuff. I'm not like great or anything. Like, I'm not like this great YouTuber, but like, I have an LSC now, and I also have tiny rabbits. Look at them go. Look at them go. So if you want to see more of those rabbits, thumbs up, subscribe. If you want to see more of that, thumbs up, subscribe. And just tell people, you know, hey man, Hugh Doggy, he's something. Just yeah, help me out, man. Like, I'm trying, you know, help a brother out, you know. All right, I'm gonna go eat some pizza or something, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. Keep you updated.